This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Tuesday, October the 14th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, he's produced the program. You will be speaking with David when you pick up the phone to give us a shout to get in the queue and on the air. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So, happy Thanksgiving to you. Hopefully you had a lovely weekend, maybe even a long weekend, enjoying the Monday day off. But anyway, hope it was grand. The weather cooperated in this neck of the woods. And let's go down to King George V. What a remarkable weekend on both the women and the men's side. Double gold. Incredible stuff. On the women's side, 2-1 victory for Holy Cross over the defending champion, CS Trident, Kate de Quebec. Terry Murphy, tournament MVP. So that's 3 in the last 5 years. Or the last 3 years. 2022, 2023, and now this year, 15 returning players from those two championship teams. On the men's side, Holy Cross wins again. Beat the defending champions, Gloucester Celtic, or the Celtics, I suppose. It was 1-1 after regulation. Thomas Peerway, the goaltender, he secured the win for Holy Cross when he potted his penalty kick. The kid who had scored in regulation time for the visitors, Gloucester, he was mocking and taunting the crowd, and then he goes on to miss the net in his penalty kick, and Holy Cross comes away with the championship. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Last time Holy Cross won on the men's side, of course, 1988. Let's go to a little bit of hockey. So this past weekend was the Atlantic Challenge Cup, and we did great. In the female under-14s, come away with the bronze medal. In the female under-16s, come away with the bronze medal. In the male under-15s, gold medal. Fantastic accomplishment there. In the male under-14s, gold medal. So we did pretty great at the Atlantic Challenge Cup this past weekend. Oh, the Newfoundland Regiment secured their first road victory of their inaugural season, 6-5 victory in Charlottetown. They were down 3-0, roar back for a 6-5 win. Pretty great stuff. And on this date, 1979, the great one, number 99, Wayne Gretzky scored his very first NHL goal. And, this is an interesting one. 1991, Mike Gardner becomes the first NHL player to score his 500th goal, 500th assist, and 1,000th point, all in the same season. And yeah, I've been talking up the Blue Jays. Dismal weekend in the first 2 games in the championship series against the visiting Seattle Mariners, who we were told will be so tired, so fatigued. A huge advantage for the Blue Jays. 10-3 drubbing yesterday to go down 2-0 in the series. Now have to travel to Seattle for 3 games there, so have to win 2 of 3, just to bring it back to Toronto. So looking pretty bleak. And for baseball fans, you'll remember this one. So on this date in 2003, Steve Bartman deflected the ball from the Chicago Cubs outfielder Moises Alou. The Cubbies gave up 8 runnings that inning to lose to the Marlins 8-3. The Bartman incident is widely considered to be the turning point in the series, and poor old Steve Bartman, lifelong Cubbies fan, stuck his hand out there. Every fan is thirsty to grab baseball when you go to the pro games, and he was getting death threats, needed police protection. It was just remarkable stuff. Anyway, let's go. It's election day. And you think back to the pandemic election, that was widely criticized when then Premier Fury called the election in the first place. And we all know what happened. Given a big spike in cases just prior to Election Day, it was no in-person voting, all mail-in ballots, court challenges happened on the heels of the election. It was a farce. This time around, hopefully a little smoother things ahead. All right, there'll be live coverage here on VOCM at Big Land FM tonight, beginning at 8 o'clock after the polls close. People don't have their voter cards either, right, because of the Canada Post strike. So the best thing to do is go to the Elections NL website or give them a call directly to ensure you know what you're getting yourself into before you go. There may indeed be some lineups because in the absence of voter cards, it's going to be a little bit more proof that you're an eligible voter. So bring forward a little bit of patience as you get out and cast your vote. All right. You know, we've seen a couple of polls out there. One that was conducted in August during the heights of the wildfires, and the Liberals had a bit of a healthy lead. At the time, I think it's fair to say Premier Hogan handled himself pretty well, new to the position. And then most recent polling really does reflect what the sense I get. It's super tight. We can expect super tight results coming in this evening. I have no earthly idea who's going to win whatever riding or district or who's going to hold the seat of government, but it is going to be close. The whole concept of every vote counts may indeed ring true again this evening. So we talk about campaign promises and spending and pledges and fingers crossed and hoping for the best and painting a bleak picture depending on which side of the political aisle you're on. What we haven't heard a whole lot about is where all the money's coming from. But anyway, you want to take on that big picture issue, we can do it. Inside the world of politics, they'll talk about the campaign and the messaging and costed platforms, which came very late in the day. But the most important thing for political parties leading up to a day like today is getting the vote out. They can bang on doors and they can have all the hustling stops, make all the pitches and promises and pledges, and they can think that they're ahead in one district or another, but getting the vote out is where the political machine really plays a massive role here today. All right. And I do think it's going to be super close tonight. I really do. I have no sense of who's going to actually win this. And then you look back and whether or not it's people vote with their pocketbook or their heart or their head, whatever particular issue is important to you. We have had the Liberals in government since 2015. So a decade-long run. It will be quite a monumental feat if they're able to come out victorious this evening. And so let's take on whatever is important to you. There's a couple of weird little quirky features of this election. Number one, Alison Coffin running in 2 different voting districts. And fair enough to her. This is not to disparage Alison Coffin in any form or fashion, because she's allowed to do it. The rules are as loosey-goosey to allow one person to run in multiple districts. And we'll see what the results look like for her tonight. She's running as an independent, of course. All right. In addition to shoring up some of those absolutely bizarre features of our legislation associated with elections, can we please get all parties to agree to some sort of approach to campaign finance reform? It's out of control. Can we please get some parties... the NDP costed platform does speak to getting back to a balance, but can we please have governments a little bit more serious about the level of debt? I almost get sick of talking about it, but it's so unbelievably important. People will continuously talk about the impact of one area of life or another and what we leave behind for our grandchildren. If we don't have a bit more of a keen focus on that provincial debt, then we're missing the boat in full. So I don't know what you thought you liked or disliked based on some of the utterings or pledges coming from various parties and their respective leaders, but let's take it on here this morning. For the Liberals, they really have hung their hat on the Upper Churchill and the Memorandum of Understanding, which of course is a non-binding agreement on the pathway to eventual, 10, 12 definitive agreements, 10, 12 contracts. I get a ton of correspondence from people. We have certainly featured that particular MOU on this program extensively and appreciate the input of folks around either side of it, but there's just so much to consider. It really does feel like drinking from a fire hose every single time that we bring up the Upper Churchill, but it's absolutely something that the Liberals are leaning in on, especially when they talk about how to cover some of their additional spends that was part of their campaign. It's going to boil back to cost of living and healthcare, isn't it? Certainly for some people, the Upper Churchill is the be-all and end-all. That's how they're going to construct their decision as who to vote for this evening. So whether it be pause the deal, independent review, what have you, and in the world of independent review, it really feels like a poorly crafted decision to not have done it from the onset. Just think about it. So between the NDP and the independent members of the House of Assembly, they voted to push this forward, all with some independent oversight. And the government chose to go down the road of a 3-person oversight panel. And we know the issue regarding Mike Wilson's resignation from the panel, but even advising the panel would be a couple of law firms, Power Advisory, that company has a long, important background, and then JP Morgan Chase. This, for me, is when you just don't go that one step that would have, I think, bring some reassurance to people who have legitimate questions regarding the MOU, and there's a lot inside it. So if JP Morgan Chase is advising the Oversight Committee, why not have just given it to JP Morgan Chase, crafted in terms of reference, knowing full well that given the history on the Churchill River, given how people think about Muskrat, given what people think about doing business with Quebec and Hydro-Quebec, if JP Morgan Chase had to be the initial choice, or whatever organization, you've heard me many times, TD or RBC or Goldman Sachs or whoever, and yes, JP Morgan Chase were advising the panel, had that been the entity given the responsibility for overview, I think there would be a different conversation, possibly, once we get their report back in hand and whatever the case may be. All right, so I'm not going to set the stage for what's important to you today. You're going to do exactly that when you join us live on the air. What was really missing from a lot of the campaign was any sort of strict focus on education, and I cannot believe that to be the case. All the concerns that we all share, the long-term prosperity and viability in this province, doesn't hang its hat on the Upper Churchill. It hangs its hat on education. Now, the Upper Churchill, you can think it's great or gross. Your perspective more than welcome here on the show. But it is really disappointing to know that education wasn't front and center, because academic trends and outcomes since 2003 are woefully low and trending in the wrong direction. A well-educated public is going to be paramount to address all the ills and the concerns that people share here in the province. And let's talk about a couple. So, public safety. You know, we lean in a lot on just hiring more police officers, more Crown prosecutors, which is an after-the-fact investigative body and prosecutorial body, but not really a whole lot about what leads down the path of so much crime and so many criminals. And I do think it's probably a small minority of the province who are the hardcore criminals that cause the bulk of the problem. But then it's drugs and addiction and treatment options, which gets some focus, but maybe it's a misunderstanding of the issue and the severity of the issue when it comes to political promises, because just hiring more police and hiring more Crown prosecutors, yeah, that's the punishment phase. But it's what leads into that. So issues regarding addictions and treatments and poverty and housing and the role that housing plays in the world of trying to stave off some of these societal ills, you can take it on if you're so inclined. And then something that politicians are loath to address, because it's a political hot potato, maybe even political harry-carry, is we can talk about ferries. Like Mr. Wakeham talked about building 4 ferries here in this province. Price tag, we don't know. And to service what? We don't know. Look, I by no means am suggesting that we empty out the bays and everyone moves to some urban centre, because that's unrealistic and it's pure madness to begin with. But I do think it would be some required leadership to talk about the future and the fate of some rural communities. I mean, they're talking about it themselves, amongst themselves, at their kitchen tables. They're talking about it on the wharf. They see the picture that's right in front of them. They understand the aging demographic. They understand that young families are leaving. They understand that economic opportunities outside of the fishery or tourism are not really what they need to be for the long-term viability of one community or another. But we can't hear a politician talk about it. Why? Because they might lose your vote, which is the absence of leadership. And again, I'm not promoting anything but a vibrant, sustainable rural Newfoundland and Labrador, but for some communities, they simply will not exist in X number of years down the road. But we cannot get any politicians to talk about it. We can talk about relocation votes and lowering the threshold from 90% to 75% and all the rest of it. But that's not a meaningful plan. That's not a meaningful strategy to understand exactly what's right there in front of us. We can all tell it. We can all see it. You see the StatsCan numbers, right? 25% plus of the province are 65 years of age or older. The median age of the province is 47. These are, the death rate way outpaces the birth rate. And it's even worse when we talk about smaller communities. And I know that you have a heartfelt affinity for your community. It's where you've grown up. It's where you've had your family. It's where your parents and grandparents are from. Maybe some of you listening, your ancestors have been in one community or another for hundreds of years. But talking about what it looks like into the future, we all know it's an important conversation. But we also know that politicians will not jeopardize a vote by talking about it in any meaningful form. And if you want to talk about it here on the show like that, let's do it. Little one that gets sticky in some corners is things like cell phone coverage. It sounds so fundamental, right? Oh, for some people it's not a big deal, but for the vast majority of the people of the province, it is a deal. It's something we pay a big bill for. The bills will come back to earth somewhat, but it's a public safety issue. Look no further than the folks who were evacuated out of Conception Bay North, for instance. Unless we can talk about the rebuild in CBN, if you're so inclined as well, and how that's working with representatives from all the communities, working with the task force established by the provincial government. But cell phone service, I hear some politicians kind of shrug it off as federal jurisdiction. That's a little bit silly. It's federal jurisdiction insofar as regulatory bodies and the CRTC, but not for provision of, well, it be pilot programs and leaning in things like Starlink or signal boosters or working with Bell. Find and tell me you're going to, have Bell commit that we're not going to shove the telecom companies around. So it's only a federal jurisdiction insofar as regulations go. Access to can indeed be shared responsibility between the regulatory bodies, the federal government, and yes, the provincial government. You want to take it on? Let's go. All right, let's see here. A couple of quick ones. Very good news developed over the weekend regarding 3 young women from this province, Devoni Ellis, Sadie Meese, and Nikita Stapleton. They were aboard Conscience, one of the 9 vessels in the flotilla, aiming to bring humanitarian relief to Gaza. And, of course, they were abducted or kidnapped. They've now been freed, and they're on their way home. I think they arrived at St. John's International just after lunchtime today. So, obviously, very good news as they're on some sort of pathway to hopeful peace, long-term peace in the region, which we can all hope for. But anyway, those 3 young ladies are on their way home. That's excellent news. How are we doing on the telephone, Dave? All right, let's leave it at that. Let's see what's happening on Twitter, where VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show to kick off the week here on this Tuesday, October the 14th, Election Day. Email address openline@vocm.com. When we come back, the topic entirely up to you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3 this morning. Say good morning to a retired member of the RCMP. That's Ron Walsh. Good morning, Ron. You're on the air.
Hi, Paddy, and I was actually a retired member of the RNC.
The RNC, and I know that. Sorry, Ron. Pardon. My apologies.
Yeah, so, like Paddy, I wanted to call in this morning because it's Election Day and safety and concern within the province in relation to security and how policing is, providing to the citizens of the province. I spent 30 years in public service and through the Canadian Armed Forces and then subsequently through the RNC. But today I want to talk about safety and security in the province as it relates to the Newfoundland Liquor Corporation. I was employed with the Newfoundland Liquor Corporation from the year 2021 until September of 2023. Responsible for store security systems, black market cannabis investigations, and liquor investigations. As an inspector with the NLC, as stated under the Act, while enforcing regulations for the Act, Liquor Control Act, Cannabis Control Act, an inspector has the same right as an RNC officer so that he can do arrest, search warrants, surveillance in relation to the Act. With this in mind, the NLC provided use of force training to the police standard that included pepper spray, baton, and handcuffs. The trouble started with the NLC requiring inspectors to make arrests. They only provided inspectors with a set of handcuffs and did not follow the use of force continuum. And this is to the national standard. This was in direct violation of the threat risk assessments and policy conducted by the NLC Human Resources. That provided specific instances for when use of force tools will be to be deployed. For example, a drug trafficker that was dealing in cannabis resists arrest, and then you have to deploy pepper spray. I confronted my manager at the time, about this, and he said they didn't issue pepper spray and baton as he didn't trust some of the inspectors to use it properly. And I had discussed my concerns with him on many occasions and felt it was, putting our safety at risk and safety of the public. Other inspectors voiced the same concerns to me in writing and to upper management. So in September 2023, I made a whistleblower complaint outlining my concerns. My manager decided to change the threat risk assessment so that the NLC would no longer be held accountable for not following the policy. Basically, he went in and stood over inspectors. They did a new threat risk assessment and changed the whole aspect of it so that an inspector would, if he's confronted with a situation, would just walk out of a bar or whatever. And I'll get into that just in a little very tiny bit. So the use of force training was stopped after just 2 years. And that's use of force training. That's done by wildlife officer to police standard, is used by the RNC, RCMP, and all those different organizations. So now inspectors who do club inspections cannot detain a 16-year-old who's underage drinking because they don't have the use of force training to effect an arrest. They are unable to arrest during drug trafficking because they don't have the use of force training. In 2022, the NLC seized over 800 pounds of black market cannabis, which you have seen on the VOCM website on many occasions, NLC, and then there's a myriad of drugs and that up on the table. And these were all seized from very high-level drug dealers in the province. The NLC was an environment of threats and intimidation. After the policy change, my manager was terminated from the NLC employment after 6 months later. To my knowledge, other inspectors came forward with complaints of threats and harassment. The whistleblower complaint was swept. My whistleblower complaint was swept under the rug. An interview was conducted by a lawyer, which was half an interview, and she seemed to have talked to the persons that I had identified in my whistleblower complaint first before she had talked to me, which to me is just a total no-no for any investigation. So nothing was done with my complaint. After going through several government departments, Service NL, I spoke to my MHA, Jody Wall, and he put me in touch with somebody from Siobhan Cody's office. And this is over the past 8 months, I guess. On October 7th, I finally received an email from Nadine Devereaux, Secretary of the Treasury Board. She outlined that the NLC had followed all policy, the same policy that had been changed to cover their activities back in 2022. The Liberals talk about security and policing. They took away the training, power of arrest that are still provided under provincial legislation for liquor inspectors. In my whistleblower complaint, a senior executive of the NLC instructed me to videotape an arrest, and if it goes sideways, erase the videotape. This, to me, is obviously an obstruction of justice. I made a complaint to the RNC. No charges were laid, and the reason being was I didn't videotape the arrest, and I didn't erase it. They said I had to go back to the NLC executives to let them deal with the matter, and which was a total joke because I'd already dealt with them in relation to the whistleblower complaint. The NLC is unaware of the true rules and regulations when it comes to law enforcement. And as the Liberal government was aware of my allegations and did nothing to take them seriously, the safety of inspectors in mind or safety of the public, and lack of enforcement of the legislation by not providing the training to enforce the legislation, meaning the Liquor Control and Cannabis Control Act. We had made many arrests of individuals who were trafficking in marijuana while at my tenure at the Liquor Corporation. And since I left, I think there has been very little done. So the mandate of the NLC was to look at black market. And now there are no real investigations being done because the use of force training is no longer there. The safety of the inspectors is not taken into consideration. Yet they still go out and talk to these people. And my concern is that somebody from the public or one of the inspectors at some point in time will be on the wrong receiving end. I mean, you look at your webpage for George Street, the number of stabbings that have gone on down there. The Healing Tree is a black market store on Water Street that continues to operate. We've done surveillance on that for many, many months, and that still continues on. All I have been asking for is an investigation to be unbiased and conducted by a quality person who is familiar with the use of force training and provincial legislation. My complaints have been dismissed and what I feel a cover-up by persons involved in this matter. My biggest concern is public safety due to the lack of black market cannabis enforcement, inspector safety by providing the tools necessary to do their investigations under the use of force training.
A couple of quick questions, Ryan, just before we go any further. So if this authority is afforded to the inspectors by legislation, who has the ability to take that away? Or is it simply the removal of some of the training that makes it?
Yeah, so Paddy, nobody has the ability unless the legislation is changed. The legislation is exactly the same.
Yeah.
But my whistleblower complaint basically outlined that the Human Resources Department of the NLC were not following their own threat risk assessments and their policy in relation to use of force training by not providing the use of force tools to inspectors when they were out arresting these individuals. I had grave concerns in relation to my safety. I mean, I'm 60 years old, and the safety of other persons employed as inspectors with the NLC who are not of a police background for the most part. And so, you know, that policy was changed to reflect that the NLC were not doing the policy correctly. So it was a bit of a cover-up as far as I was concerned, right? And I don't think the Liberal government took it seriously at all. If they had to assign somebody to look at it, it would have been totally treated differently because, like I said, all the evidence is there. They just need somebody to go back and look at my complaint and my audio interview with the lawyer, who I outlined the obstruction of justice to, which should have been reported right away to the RNC. I mean, as a police officer, when I was in the RNC, if a person made an allegation of obstruction that I had done, I would be put off and an investigation would be conducted. There is no oversight of the NLC inspectors. Like there's a CERT team for the RNC, RCMP. For NLC inspectors or wildlife officers, there's no oversight. There's nobody to go to. So it's a self-running organization or self-ruling, self-determination organization.
Yeah, which is never helpful. I'm having a bit of a difficult time understanding this from the starting point consideration. So when we hear from the RNC and the RCMP that they're understaffed, underfunded, but at the exact same time not affording the ability or the authority in the legislation for in this case, NLC inspectors to do their job, I don't really understand the rationale for any of this, whether it be for the government turning its back on a whistleblower and or for the law enforcement agencies.
Well, what it boils down to from my perspective, and this is only my assumption, is that because of my complaint, they attempted to cover it up, and in the attempt to cover it up, they took away the powers of arrest of inspectors, and thus took away the ability to serve the community, serve the province by outdoing these investigations. And so, in relation to the RNC, what I can say about that is over the past 6 or 8 months, we've had 15 to 20 members resign. So, is that an environment because of the work that they're involved in the RNC that it's not conducive to their way of thinking? Or is it a liberal, way of saying, well, we don't really give a crap and we'll just hire more people? But it's hard to get people to join the police department now because everybody has a phone. They're all concerned of their safety or their scrutiny. And so, the Liberals have been for 8 years listening to, we've been listening to them, and it has not worked. So I really think it's time for a change, and I'm not a very political person at all. This is going to be the first time today that I've voted in 20 years. But because of my knowledge of my, involvement in policing and in the Liquor Corporation, it's just time for a change.
It's a completely bizarre story. You would think that more people with the appropriate training doing said enforcement and or policing, whichever the right word is here, is better for everybody, including the Liberals, including the RNC, including the RCMP. So this one here is just straight up confusing.
Well, and not only that, but the obstruction issue in relation to go out and videotape an arrest. And then, well, if it goes sideways, erase it. That's illegal. That is totally illegal. It goes against all principles of law enforcement. You would be charged criminally, and I was asked to do that. It just blows my mind. What I feel needs to happen is the NLC inspectors need to be taken out of a Crown Corporation and put as their own entity, much the same as what wildlife officers are, given full training, provided all the means to do their job and do the inspections to be of service to the province and not take away. It's like, I'll just refer to the working aloft course. Every 3 years, you got to do a working aloft course or close proximity to electricity. And then you get that training again just to be up to date. And yet now, the inspectors are turning around and not getting that training anymore. And they're still expected to go do their job. But under requirement, under provincial legislation, people that are working aloft need that course every 3 years. And now liquor inspectors have been taken away the use of force training, which is provided to every peace officer, police officer in the country.
Are the wildlife officers these days answering to the Department of Justice or under the auspices of the Department of Justice, or is it Environment?
I don't really know. In relation to wildlife officers?
Yeah. It just probably...
I think it's...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think it's wildlife, actually, Department of Wildlife.
Yeah, it probably belongs at Justice, just like these NLC inspectors.
Yeah.
Ronnie, anything else while we have you this morning? Because I want to chase this one a little bit, see what I can find out.
Yeah, it's just terrible. Like, it's a fine case of cover-up. I mean, I've only attempted to try and make I've gone through every single channel that I could up to the Secretary, Nadine Devereux, and only to be, just placated the whole time, basically hoping that I would go away. But what they don't understand is I'm out for the safety of the inspectors that are still there. I'm out for the safety of the public that those inspectors are serving, to be able to operate in a safe environment. They shouldn't be forced to go into a club that's affiliated with a gang, whether it's in Grand Falls or Windsor, and not have the use of force training, be confronted by a drug individual in there, and then have no way of defending themselves. I mean, it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I mean, when we see the drug busts and then the photo ops associated with it, we see the drugs and the cash and the vehicles, but then we always see the weapons, the guns and the knives and the brass knuckles. So when we're dealing with the world of drugs these days and or their relationship to organized crime, there's inevitably a very high possibility of weapons to be part of those interactions. Ronnie, I'm really glad that you painted this picture for me here this morning. We will indeed do some follow-up on it. Anything else very quickly before I have to go?
Paddy, you have my number there. You give me a call anytime, and I'll be more than happy to come back on to further give detail in relation to it. But it's just an environment of intimidation, which I didn't experience before. The police department back when I joined was a rough and tumble place. And the NLC in relation to treatment of employees, it's atrocious. The union is atrocious there. I've never seen the like.
Crazy
Anyways,
stuff.
I just wanted to give the people of the province the opportunity to hear my story and judge for themselves, on voting day for a Liberal or PC government. I think we've had 8 years of this now, and maybe it's time for a change.
Appreciate the time, Ronnie. Thanks for doing it.
Okay. All right, Paddy. Nice talking to you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Now, that was a weird one to kick off the week. Like, what? Let's get a break. When we come back, we're talking red tape, the MOU, whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Tolson, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Paddy. How are you this morning, boy?
Very well, thank you. How about you?
Thanks for taking my call, Paddy. You have to bear with me because I got a touch of a flu.
Okay, no problem.
But anyway, I tried to get through on Friday, Paddy, and your line, no doubt what you were saying and what David was saying was black solid. I was there from 9 to 12 and I couldn't get through. But I'm through with you now, so here it is. Paddy, this year being the 100th anniversary of women eligible to vote in the country, it's overwhelming. I gotta say, with watching the federal election as I did, and watching the provincial unfolding and the municipal, women is just playing a major role in politics.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to comment on that or not.
Well, I mean, it's remarkable that it's only been that recent where women were given the ability to vote. And even more recently, the see women rise to prominent positions in politics, which I think back in this province, at one point, all 3 party leaders were women. When Cathy Dunderdale was the Premier and Lorraine Michael was at the helm of the NDP and Yvonne Jones was the leader of the Liberals. So I don't know what to say beyond that. But anyway... Yeah. Keep going.
Well, no, I'd like to throw a bouquet to our first woman mayor of the town of Hearts Content. We've had 5 previous mayor men as councillors, but we got our first woman now, and her name is Glenda Hiscock. I've known her since she was a teenager, Paddy, and especially she used to work for me back in the late 70s. And now to see her rise up to where she's at and be the town leader in the town, one of the town leaders here, it's amazing. But Penny, I just wanted to say too that being the mayor, but she's hold the position of councillor, the deputy mayor in the last setting, and now our mayor. But there was a deputy mayor in the town before. A former deputy mayor was Jean Boland, Rick Boland, Rick's mom.
Okay.
Was the deputy mayor back in I think it was 2009. That area. But anyhow, Paddy, we were at like I said, Glenda is the first mayor since 1974. And now we've had 15 run this time in the election. We had a 78% turnout. We had, and all of hats go off to the 7 candidates that ran and were defeated. God love them. But the deputy mayor right now is the former mayor, Doug Piercy, myself, Tolson Randall, Clarence Brown, Wanda Legg, Bradley George, and Jamie Langer is our group now. Paddy, I just want to say also that if you enter the town of Hearts Content right now, as you know, we're into the UNESCO run. From the Victoria side coming over Route 70, you'll see that big sign now. The signs are changed in the town of Hearts Content. The sign is there now of the Great Eastern, which was the largest ship afloat in the entire world in 1866 when she laid the cable here in Hearts Content. And you're coming in from Hearts Desire on Route 80, and it's the same sign. And from New Perlican on Route 80, you'll see the same sign as the Great Eastern. But when you get up to the cable station up up there, and I'd like to special thanks goes out to former councillor Valerie Whalen and Rainey Cranwell for doing a replica of a sign that shows the Great Eastern landing the cable in Hertscontain on July 27, 1866. Is just an overwhelming job, Paddy, that they done there. It's an overwhelming job that they got there, and it's done in place. It's an eye catcher, I'll tell you that.
Nice to hear.
Yeah, Paddy, and the other thing is I'd just like to say again, this being the day of the election in the province, I'd like to give a shout out to in this district for Carbonear Trinity Bay de Verde. Our PC candidate is Ronnie Balsam. The Liberal candidate is Danielle Doyle. The NDP candidate is Kathleen Bird. And the Independent is Alison Coffin. And another Independent is Edward Thomas Cole. I just wish them all luck and all the best. And let the people decide. And that's the way elections go. And that's the democratic way to do it.
For sure, Tulsa. Appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Paddy. And thanks for holding there with me because I'm not feeling up to it today. But I had to do it a minute.
I appreciate it. Get well soon.
Take care. Stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's go to line number 6. Edna, you're on the air.
Hi, Edna Roberts from Carbonear. I'm part of a Carbonear Crafters Circle, a group of crafters who do crafting for fun and the joy of it. On Saturday, we're going to take part in the Carbonear Harvest Festival by holding a display and demonstration of some of our works here at the Community College cafeteria from 10 o'clock in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. And we'd love to share some of the things we do with you and maybe even show you how to do some things if you don't know how to do them.
Do some things such as?
Knitting, crocheting, diamond painting, would you believe? Tunisian crochet. We have people who do all kinds of things, and we get together and do them, have tea and eat cookies and chat.
What's the difference between traditional crocheting and Tunisian crochet?
I couldn't tell you because I don't do it. But one of the people in the group is a dab hand at it. And, well, if you could always come out and see.
I guess I could. Fair point. And so is it today, Edna, or when did you say it was?
No, on Saturday.
Coming up Saturday.
From 10 until 3. And we're going to have cookies and tea as we usually do.
Sounds like a scrumptious time. And now I'm curious about what Tunisian crocheting is.
Oh, well, you really need to know what Tunisian crochet is. And Swedish weaving.
I think you're right, Edna. I appreciate your time this morning. Good luck with it.
Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. There you go, the Carbonear Community Centre, a little Tunisian crochet, good for the soul. Let's take a break. When we come back, red tape MOU. Kevin's also in the queue to talk about an issue with a developer out in Paradise. Sarah wants to talk about transitional allowance. I wonder, is that the behind closed doors additional severance pay for cabinet ministers that thankfully got rescinded, but it was shameful to vote for it in the first place. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Alvin, you're on the air.
Morning, Paddy. How are you?
Not too bad. How about you?
Oh, surviving. We certainly have a lovely day out there. There's no excuse for not voting because of the weather, that's for sure. Paddy, I called this morning because you remember there's an old saying on the go, now is the time for all good people to come to the aid of the party. In my opinion, in this particular election, now is the time for all good people to come to the aid of the province, their province, our province. Paddy, back when Peckford sought his mandate on the offshore back in 82, I think it was, he won 44 out of 52 seats in the House of Assembly. He got a landslide. That means a lot of people who normally voted Liberal voted for him in that election. Simply put, they put their province first, not their party. And as a result, we got the Atlantic Accord, and I think everybody would agree that the Atlantic Accord has been great stuff for both our province and our country. Paddy, to the chagrin of many of my former PC colleagues, I voted Liberal for the first time in my life in the last federal election because I believe Mark Carney was the best person to be Prime Minister in these difficult times. Simply put, in the last federal election, I voted for my country, not my usual party. Paddy, I watched the debate the other night, and obviously neither of the three leaders is a Joey Smollett or a Brian Peckford in terms of political rhetoric. But we saw the Liberal leader, Mr. Hogan, stick to his MOU, and the PC leader, Mr. Wakeham, did the exact opposite thing. He said that he would vet the MOU before it went any further. Paddy, numerous independent number crunchers have dissected this MOU and found it to be a disaster, as bad, if not worse, than the Upper Churchill deal, while no independent number crunchers have supported it. Simply put, the Hogan Liberals, their minions, and a cabal of millionaires are in favor of it. Now, I see something wrong with that picture. I hope the people out in your listening audience do as well. Paddy, I said that I was voting PC in this election. It's been no secret because a personal friend, Darrell Hines, is running for the PCs in my home district of Mount Sile. However, if Darrell was running for the Liberal Party in this election, friend or not, I could not vote for him, not in this particular election. The current Liberal Party is led by a bright young doctor, and now it's led by a bright young lawyer. But from my point of view, as a 73-year-old with a working lifetime in politics, these two young men are babes in the woods when it comes to politics. As one of the independent number crunchers said, and I quote, Fury and Hogan were led into a well-laid Quebec trap on the MOU, and now Premier Hogan wants the other 500,000 of us to follow him into that trap. Paddy, obviously Premier Hogan has not changed his mind on vetting the MOU from anything I've heard. We've been twice bitten on the Churchill River, and if you vote Liberal, you're voting for an unvetted MOU, and basically you'll be rolling the dice, on your great-grandchildren's future.
Alvin, how are you drawing the parallel with the Atlantic Accord? Because, I mean, I was a pretty young man at the time, but there was no real political opposition here in the province to the Atlantic Accord.
In Newfoundland at the time, the Liberal Party in the House of Assembly wanted us to sign the Nova Scotia Agreement, which was basically an agreement that Pierre Trudeau put in that basically gave Nova Scotia a secondary role in its own offshore arrangements.
Right.
So basically, for Peckford to get 44 seats, a lot of people who would normally support NDP or Liberal or whatever, they voted for him because they voted for the future of the province. They were willing to take an issue of trust with him, that he would work hard to bring about the Atlantic Accord, and of course he did. There is a parallel in that I'm calling on people to, in this election, don't so much think about your normal party affiliations. Think about what's best for your province in terms of the MOU. Let me tell you one little thing before I go, Paddy. In one of my final exams in high school, the vice principal was the supervisor, and he said this: when I give the signal, you've got 2 hours to complete this exam. I'm not going to wish you good luck. My only wish is that you get what you deserve. Paddy, if we endorse the MOU in this election, I've no doubt we'll get what we truly deserve. Just like when Dwight Ball was elected in a change election because of Muskrat, we need this to be a change election in order to stop and vet the MOU. To me, it's as simple as that.
I appreciate the time. You know, what would be helpful is all these aforementioned number of crunchers in opposition to the MOU, the vast majority of them have been on this program. In contrast to Mr. Wakeham's comments, he's basically just saying pump the brakes and independent review. And I think his idea about a referendum was probably not a very good idea. But I don't recall him saying much in the way of specifics, unlike Mr. Wilson or Sullivan or Vardy or Gregory or Danny or others, about, exactly what we need to focus in on, which I find to be most helpful, to be honest.
From my point of view, in general terms, he's agreed to have the MOU vetted by whatever process, some sort of independent process. And whether or not there's a referendum down the road is a totally different issue. But right now, he's agreed to have it vetted. And, Petty, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind and in my heart that if we set up an independent panel and it vets the MOU, it will come up with the same results of all these bright Newfoundlanders who've done all this analysis themselves and basically said it's a repeat, if not worse, than the Upper Churchill contract.
Yeah, okay. So an independent panel Just let's take that a step further. Because I don't know how much different that would be than the current approach, as opposed to try to find a company with no conflict of interest, which is also going to be a tricky piece of business when we talk about consulting firms or advisory bodies and or banks or other lenders who have not done business with Hydro, this province, Hydro-Quebec, or the province of Quebec. Why not just give it to someone like that? I'll just pick a company that I've used many times because they've been doing analysis in the energy business for a long time, like Goldman Sachs. Why not just pick a company as opposed to try to cherry pick some individuals? Because going down that road, inevitably, it won't satisfy all folks who are opposed to the project or the proposal.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, it's key that we set up some sort of proper vetting process. And I can't. I'm not in government right now or anything. But if I were in charge, I'd personally, I'd call in the Public Utilities Board, and I'd say, we want you guys, because you have a legislative role in dealing with these things. I want you guys to set up a panel, use your budget to bring in whatever experts you can from Brazil, South Africa, doesn't matter where, that are experts in the field of hydroelectricity and high finance. Put the committee together and give them some terms of reference to find out if this thing is good for us, so for us, or a disaster for us, and set them to work. But an individual company, I'd rather have a retired PhD in economics from Australia get involved in something like this than someone who may or may not have a vested interest. But I think it will be up to the PUB or whatever organization the government assigned to construct a panel of experts, and they would do the analysis. And like I say, I firmly believe they would come up with the same results as everybody else.
I appreciate the time, Alvin. Anything else quickly before I get to the news?
No, that's it. You said earlier that every vote counts. I lost my third election by 16 votes in Windsor-Springdale, so every vote does count.
That it does. Remember, it's not that long ago, Jordan Brown beat Graham Leto by one vote, just to drive that point home.
It happens, and if you come a close second, there is no prize. You simply lose.
That's it. Absolutely. There's only one winner in the election. Well, you know what I mean. Alvin, appreciate the time. Thanks for doing it.
No problem, Paddy. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's get to the news break on time. For those of you in the queue, stay right there. We'll get to you right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the president of the Bonavista and Trinity Bay Trail Riders Association. That's Ted Penny. Hi, Ted. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Morning.
First, let me begin by saying the reason for my call this morning is to make 2 points. First of all, I want to let your listening audience, many of whom give us tremendous support, to know exactly where we are with the throwaways, what the delays are, and to vent our frustration in these delays. It seems like we make 1 step forward and 10 back. And first of all, let me begin by introducing the Bonavista and Trinity Bay Trail Riders. The Bonavista and Trinity Bay Trail Riders is a not-for-profit organization that is manned by a volunteer, dedicated group of people who have the initiative to revitalize the old Bonavista branch line, to make it a year-round tourist attraction. The transformation of the Bonavista railbed into a multi-purpose trail offers remarkable potential. In the fall and in the summer, it will serve as an ATV trail to bring tourists to our area. It will horseback riding, walkers, hikers, whatever your recreational needs. This initiative is much more than a recreational upgrade. This is going to bring a great economic growth to the Bonavista Peninsula. With the proper investment and proper planning, this can become a tourist attraction that will attract tourists from all over Canada and the world.
So what's the hang-up, Ted?
We're having all kinds of issues with trying to acquire the LTO. The LTO is a license to occupy. You have to have the LTO before you're allowed to do anything. Now, we did begin and do some work without having the LTO. We wasn't aware of it until we had a visit from the Department of Environment from St. John's. They came and had a visit. We took them on a tour of the work that we had done to the trailway and what our intent was of doing more. They were very overwhelmed with what we had done, very pleased, and advised us that we didn't have no environmental assessment or anything to complete the trailway, but we had to apply for the license to occupy, which we did. And we went as far as even hiring a consultant, which cost us thousands of dollars. And this has been 2 years now, and we still not have got that permission to develop that trailway. We haven't got written consent, and without written consent, we're not supposed to do anything. And as we all know, anybody who knows the Bonavista Peninsula knows the devastation that Igor had on the parts of that peninsula. And every day that passes by is devastating to the revitalization of this trailway. It's getting more and more deteriorated. Every year we see a difference. And if this is soon not worked on, then it's going to be almost impossible to take on the job of trying to restore it. So what I'm saying is, whoever is in government after the day, I hope to God that they open up those buildings. All those buildings, those government buildings, were constructed and staffed so that they could serve us, the people of the province. And they're all closed down. Since COVID, we have not been able to get in those buildings. If you, for example, if you want to contact somebody in Crown Lands, I've been trying for the past few weeks now to get over to Tara Morgan. Tara Morgan is the main representative for the Crown Lands in Carnival. I want to get her to call the Department of Forestry in Carnival to give them permission to issue us a cutting permit so that we can start cutting back the brush. The track is growing in. People are trying to use it. You know, most people have got investments of upwards $60,000, $70,000 for those machines that they're using today. You know, this industry has gotten really, really big. It's bringing a lot of dollars to the province. We see it throughout other areas of the province. And what's most frustrating to me is to see and learn, talking to and listening to other individuals speak about their areas. We see a brand new trail being developed on the southern shore of Newfoundland. We see another trail there in Trinity Bay that's recently been erected. There's so many. The list just goes on. And all we're asking for is our opportunity to do this trail. We want to connect the Bonavista Peninsula to the rest of the trailways across Newfoundland. And we have a bunch of volunteers dedicated to do it. And all we want is the okay to do it. And we have played the game. Our transparency speaks for itself. We've been open and transparent with every government department. We've invited them to come. I've tried several times to make contact with VOCM, or with CBC or NTV, to have them come out and so that I could take them on a tour and let them film the destruction that's here on our peninsula. This destruction that we have taken on to correct. We are going to put that trailway through. We have done an assessment. We know we can do it, and we can't get the LTO to allow us to go forward.
So, Ted, what specifically is holding things up here? Like, what are they asking for?
Paddy, it's beyond me. It seems like they did, like this part of this trail from Bonavista to the sheep farm just below Port Rexton. that part of the trail was awarded to a group prior to our existence. The group was known as the Bonavista Peninsula Trailway. They were unsuccessful. They didn't finish the job they started. They spent an excessive amount of money on it, but they never did complete it. So when we started on what I refer to as the Lethbridge Inn, on the western end of it all, we started and we said we'll take it all in. We'll do right to Bonavista. So they confronted us and said, we had a public meeting. They confronted us and said, okay, if you guys are going to do it, you guys do it all. So they transferred over. Their LTO, their lease. They transferred their lease over to us, to the Bonavista and Trinity Bay Trail Riders Association. And we came together as one body. And Penny, we got tremendous support. We got over $60,000, upwards of $60,000, gone directly in our bank account through donations, through fundraisers that have come from the general public. Plus, we got thousands and thousands of dollars worth of non-monetary items. Like we had beams that was erected for the offshore out in Bay Bulls. They were donated and delivered free of cost right to our site for us to reconstruct the old trestle in Loxton. We have people who are coming forward with their heavy equipment, operating their heavy equipment at minimum cost, sometimes barely even the cost of the fuel. I doubt if they're even getting the cost of fuel for the work that they're performing. So you see, we have tremendous support. We have a website. We got over 3,000 followers on our website. I mean, like I said, the support for this is unbelievable. But the frustration has got to the point where I can almost write a book on this. Like I said, you're trying to get out to somebody in Crown Lands. You call over there, and all you do is you wait forever and ever, and eventually you're only talking to a machine. You're talking to a recording. And after a while, you'll get an answer, and if you're trying, then you'll get someone will set up an appointment to make a telephone call with you, and you will talk to somebody on the telephone. You cannot get in the buildings, and with the language barriers and everything in departments today, it's very difficult to conduct business on a telephone. You have to go in that office where you can lay out the facts right on the desk and be face-to-face with the individual that you're talking to and explain to them what your frustration is, what you're trying to prove. And Paddy, that's the way that business has got to be done. I mean, I hope that God today, that whoever wins the election tonight, that they will look into this. I mean, the government departments are so hard to deal with. And the simple fact is, because you can't get in to talk to the individuals. If you could actually walk in those buildings and talk to those individuals and lay out all your complaints, then I'm sure it would be a lot better.
No question. I mean, counter-service has gone by the way of the dodo bird. So for something that, this area is only ever going to be used for a couple of things, including what you're proposing here. It could be an economic driver. It could be the opportunity for people to get out and enjoy the outdoors. All things that we hear as some level of importance to the government. So inaction on these things just doesn't make any sense. I mean, if there's other competing proposals, whatever they might be, that would be one thing. But with one group coming forward with a sole purpose and the money spent on consultants and going through the LTO and all the rest of it, I don't know why government is so slow and drags their heels on a variety of things, including this. It's really frustrating, though. I can only imagine what it is for you, Ted.
Yes, and Paddy, like I said, this got great economic growth for the peninsula, the Bonavista Peninsula, and we know that. We see it. I mean, anybody who was following the political campaigns, Charlie Pender there at Carnival is speaking about it. He's using it on his platform. He's speaking about it. He's saying about when he was mayor of Carnival, how he brought in the ATVs to Carnival, let them go to the town of Carnival. And he's emphasizing on the great economic growth that he's seeing by allowing that to happen. And we all know that this is going to be a major industry in our province. We're seeing tourists from all across Canada right now. We're actually seeing tourists from Canada going down the Bonavista Peninsula. And like I said, man, they give their bikes one awful punishment to go down there. I mean, this trail is certainly not by no means to the standard that it needs to be. And like I said earlier, those machines cost anywhere from the starting point on those machines, for the most part, is 40 grand up. They're very, very luxurious machines today. They're completely enclosed, heated, air conditioning, very, very luxurious. And we got a lot of our seniors today who was getting the opportunity to get out and enjoy the great outdoors. And they're seeing a different perspective. I mean, this is our heritage. This Bonavista branch line is what made the Bonavista Peninsula what it is today. Was that connection with that railway. The Reed Newfoundland Company came here, constructed that railway. Our fathers and our grandfathers before us worked on this railway. It should have been just passed on down to us. And I mean, this is a way that we can restore this heritage. I mean, we can almost every town, every community got
Understood.
a story.
Absolutely, Ted. Listen, I appreciate the time and the information here this morning. Keep me in the loop.
I certainly will, and like I said, I'm hoping that if we get a change of government, that whoever it is, for God's sake, listen to us, and I give us the opportunity to develop this and take all the red tape and everything that we're facing, because it's awful frustrating.
Ted, I know it is. I appreciate your time. Thank you. All right. Did he say goodbye? All right. Ted Penny, President of the Bonavista Trinity Bay Trail Riders Association. Let's take a break. Welcome back. Just a couple of quick things. So people are sending me notes asking, do I know where their polling station is? Short answer is no. But if you go to Elections NL, there's a Where to Vote tab. You simply go in and type in your civic address, and they'll tell you where your polling station is. Then there's some confusion about Elections NL signage, specifically at the Village Mall. If that is your polling station, the signage apparently is really poor. The voters have been asking, and we're being told that the mall itself is restricting the signage. So if you are going to have to vote at the Village Mall, the polling stations are on the lowest level next to where the fountain once was. All right, let's keep going. Let's go to line number 3. Kevin, you're on the air.
Good day, Paddy. How are you today, sir?
Not too bad. How about you?
Great, sir. Paddy, I just wanted to call in and just follow up on the situation, the development on Drovers Road on the back of Irving Drive. Since we've last chatted, I've with the help of a friend of mine who's a mayor here in the metro area, and I'm after digging my teeth into this thing and finding out more information. And I've talked to Bradley Moss, the provincial ombudsperson that oversees departments of government for the Newfoundland government. Also, I spoke to Dan Bobbitt. Dan was coming up my street a few weeks ago campaigning, so I had the opportunity to have a speak with him. And so he gave me some information. He said that there's two parts to my argument there. The first part is the environment, the wildlife, and the second part is the violation of the acts. From what I can see, the town didn't follow proper procedure. The town of Paradise didn't follow proper procedure when it comes to the Urban Rural Planning Act and the Newfoundland and Regulation Act. So Dan Bobbitt told me that we were supposed to be notified within any resident within 200 meters. We're supposed to be notified. Of course, none of us were notified, so then I drafted up a petition and got all the residents on the street to sign a petition to have this development put on hold, and to try to figure out what is going on there, as we weren't notified. So when I walked up the street, I talked to one lady. She's been there 54 years. So obviously this street is one of the older streets here in Paradise. So we had it was wildlife abundant habitat, treed habitat behind us. So I talked to her, and she told me, she said, Kevin, she said, it's appalling what's after happening there. She said, I had to put my cat in my house a few weeks ago, she said, before all this took place, because my cat was going out in the tree line and taking the baby rabbits, the baby bunnies, out of their burrows, out of their dens, and leaving them on her front step half dead or whatnot. So she buried her cat in her house. So I started thinking about all this. So then I started digging. Municipalities are subject to federal and provincial environmental acts. So the municipality, they had to know, or someone in environment knew, or they should have known that, they're subject to environmental and wildlife acts. The rabbits were in their breeding season, their last breeding season, so they had bunny rabbits, babies in the dens or pregnant moms. All this was scooped up, Patty, and carried away in a dump truck. And I don't blame the developer. The developer is only doing what he's told. But I do blame the town for not following through on what they were supposed to do. They are subject to the Federal Wildlife Act, the Environmental Protection Act, and the Environmental Protection Act, clearly states, and if you go back to the Municipalities Act, Section 414, a council shall make regulations respecting, subject to the Environmental Protection Act, Section 46. Subsection A, so they broke these acts, which they should not have done. But anyway, they did do this. But then I went back to, were we notified? And then I find out from the act that the Urban and Rural Planning Act, Patty, that under Section 14, subsection 1, they violated that part of the act, and then they took away our rights under subsection 41, section A of the act. Then the Provincial Regulations Act, Notice of Appeal, section 5, they broke that act. Now, where all this is going to go, Patty, I have no idea. It all comes down to, I guess, where do we push this to? But certainly, goodness, towns need to be self-aware that they are accountable to provincial regulation. And I don't know if anyone, in the town of Paradise actually read these the Urban and Rural Planning Act, the Municipalities Act. It makes me wonder if, it seems like they're just going and doing what they're doing and not taking any disregard of what their responsibilities are, which is very unfortunate for a town.
Yeah, the summary question of who has to answer for this is a good one, because inevitably this will be finger pointing, municipality at the province and vice versa.
Absolutely, but Patty, my God, Patty, where is the town to not realize that they are accountable to the wildlife? You got to think about what they did to the wildlife. There has not been a rabbit seen on our street in weeks and weeks and weeks. And on our street, we're one of the oldest streets here in Paradise. There would be, you walk up the street at early in the morning or late, usually early in the morning, there would be 5 or 10 rabbits running around the property. It's gone. There hasn't been anything, and knowing that rabbits were, in their breeding season, the law applies equally to me, you, and in corporations, which a municipality is a corporation. So they're in complete violation of the Wildlife Act, then the Animal Health and Protection Act. They broke all these laws. And I'm just wondering, I'm working with Bradley Moss, the provincial ombudsperson, but I'm sure, I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of this. But the town of Paradise certainly needs to start realizing that their responsibilities are, because it seems like they just go in. After talking to the neighbors, several of the neighbors made the joke, Paradise. If they see a tree, they cut it down. So, which is very unfortunate. And I've lived in Paradise for 20 years, and some of the neighbors a lot longer than me, and everyone got the same attitude. Listen, nobody is against development, but development is subject to the community, the general welfare of the community, and certainly public health and quality of life in general.
I appreciate the time, Kevin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Patty.
You're welcome.
Have a great day.
The same to you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Let's see here. When we come back, Cyril's still there to talk about the transitional allowance. Sharon wants to talk about her power bills, and then we're speaking with you. Or Shannon, pardon me, wants to talk about the power bills. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Cyril, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you.
No problem.
For allowing time for me to speak on your show this morning. This is an important message that I have. So I ask your listeners to pay attention, listen carefully. I have great respect for any politician who sacrificed their time and energy to improve our province and to make life better for us. But I have lost all respect, trust, and credibility for this Liberal government.
What in particular has made you feel that way, Cyril?
Pardon me?
What in particular has made you feel that way?
I will give you example after example.
Fair enough.
I'll just go with a few. Let's take the transitional allowance. It was done behind closed doors. It was cover up. The same thing has been happening for 10 years. Scandal after scandal. Because the government is corrupt. And then comes the cover up. Keeps repeating itself over and over again. And all this is happening for one reason, and one reason only. We've had no leadership, no real leadership. This government haven't had it for 10 years. 10 full years of no real leadership. And I'll give you the example. This transitional allowance is a very good example. When, I think it was CBC, got access to information and found out what was happening, that those people behind the closed doors voted themselves the transitional allowance. They asked our Premier, Mr. Hoban. This was his response. I didn't know. IDK, I didn't know. What a response to come from a Premier. And then he gave the reason why he didn't know. Because he was on the campaign trail. He was campaigning. Even though he was back to work 23 days. And he didn't know? Well, let me tell you this. He was the Premier. He was supposed to know. That's his job to know. I didn't know. What a cop-out. Easier, softer way out. Man, oh man, come on. Give me a break.
It makes no sense. Okay. It makes no sense that John Hogan didn't know about it. Like, that does not pass anybody's smell test, if we're being honest. And when you mention out on the campaign trail, that's when he was running for the Liberal leadership. So, yeah, okay, he was not technically in cabinet, but to then be sworn in May after this decision was made in March and to say that he didn't know about it, I don't think anyone's buying that. And just for a refresher, this additional transitional allowance or severance for cabinet ministers, it was prorated. It was a bare minimum of $12,000 on top of the already in place severance pay for a maximum of just short of $49,000. So we are talking pretty significant money. It's good that it went by the wayside, but it is shameful that it ever happened in the first place.
Absolutely shameful, pathetic, sad. And to say, I've seen it flashed on the screen, on my TV screen, a few times. Real leadership. Real leadership, you know what. Come on, give us a break. The Newfoundlanders are not that naive. They're intelligent, smart people. They can figure out what's going on. This man had the opportunity. He had the opportunity, but he dropped the ball. He missed the boat. He missed a golden opportunity. He could have come out swinging and said, hey, this stuff is going to stop. I am the leader. I got real leadership to offer you people. I am behind you. Not those cronies that came up with this deal. Absolutely ridiculous. He had the opportunity to shine, but he didn't do it. You're either for us or you're against us. And that just showed his true colors. He don't have it as a real leadership, and he's not going to have it. And my message today to the people of this province, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your co-workers to get out and vote. Vote. Tell everyone you see, tell people you meet on the street to get out and vote. Vote today. Vote for the independent. Vote for the NDP. Vote for the PCs. Do not vote for this liberal, corrupt party. We've had them long enough. It's time to get rid of them. It's time to kick them out. It's time to vote them out. It's like the Bismarck. We got to sink the Bismarck. We got to put her down. The world depends on us. We got to sink this liberal government. We got to put them down because our children and our grandchildren depends on us. They depend on us. Remember that, my friends. Remember, this man has not got it. I'll tell you that. He's got no gumption. He's got no guts. He didn't stand up for us. And now I'm going to give you another example why he didn't stand up for us. He had the opportunity again. There a while back, he was asked this question. What do you think of the money that was spent on the travel nurses? This is what he said. Fear. Okay then. If it was fair, why didn't he call a news conference and tell the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, explain to them how it was fair? This was in the news for a long, long time, and it's still in the news. He didn't do it if he thought it was fair. He was the Minister of Health. He was probably involved with it. Don't tell me that they don't know what happened. If you're working for a company and you're in charge of finance, you know where the money is going. Come on, man. Come on, let's get real. Who are you trying to fool? Not me, and not you, the taxpayers either. You know as well as I know what happened. Cover up scandal, scandal, scandal. Because there's a corrupt government. Simple as that. It's been corrupt for 10 years. Unreal. The nurses know it's not fair. They know it's not fair, and all of you know it's not fair.
Okay.
This not only started here recently. This started 10 years ago. 10 years ago. Look what Mr. Ball did. I remember that election when he got elected. The PC said this. They said, we are going to raise the HST 2%. Well, I said, that's all we need, another 2% on what we're paying now. On comes Mr. Ball with his big way and everything else, and his hair all slicked back. That's one thing I'm not going to do when I get elected. I am not going to raise the HST. What did he do? Turned around and raised it. HST 2%. Posters on every pole. Posters. Really upset him about all the posters. I remember that. And you remember too. You, the voters, remember that. Betrayal, traitor, right from the start. Right from the get-go. Right from the get-go. And then he had this what's her name worked over at the rooms there down there by the Basilica or somewhere. Anyway, a buddy down there on the Northern Peninsula went and gave her that job. They asked Mr. Ball about that, and Carla thought that's who it was. I don't know. I didn't know about it. DK blamed it all on Mr. Mitchelmore. And that man was very laid back, easy going, never rocked the boat, never made any waves. I believe the only thing he did while he was in there. And here he lost his political career over it. They blamed it on him. That's the kind of a government that we had for 10 years. They didn't know. Unreal, man, unreal.
Okay,
we can't vote those people back in. We'd be off our head. We can't do it. We got to think about our children and our grandchildren. We can't do this, but unreal.
Understood, Cyril.
You never heard.
I won't put you down. I said understood. I won't put you down as undecided.
You're going to do what?
I said I will not put you down as undecided. Would you like to say anything else quickly before I have to go?
Okay, then. I'll just summarize.
Please.
What I've been saying. Today is the day to get out and vote. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your co-workers, tell everyone you meet.
Thank you, Cyril. Appreciate your time. Cyril's sick of it. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 1. Shannon, you're on the air.
Morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Okay, you?
Good, sir. This is Shannon Jones. I'm calling from Western Newfoundland. And just want to let you know a little bit of my background. I'm a builder, and we build many new homes here on the West Coast for people and also spec homes. Just got back from St. John's from the weekend. Our son was in a basketball tournament out there, and my wife showed me the email from Newfoundland Labrador Power that our yearly estimated payment doubled. So I found that really strange because, like I said, I'm a builder. I built this new house not that long ago, and everything energy efficient, all spray foam insulations, heat pumps. I got a wood-burning fireplace as well. And I didn't understand the extreme increase in the power bill. So I called them this morning. I was on the phone with them for 30 minutes, just going over the last 6 months of the power bills. So just for example, in July month, 2024, we used 915 kilowatts. And in 2025, we used 1,815 kilowatts. And like I said to the Newfoundland Labrador Power guy, we weren't even home. Our son was on the Canada Games team for basketball, and we were gone all of July and 3 weeks in August. So I wanted some type of an explanation why the increase when nobody was home. So the explanation he gave, he said, well, perhaps your hot water tank, the thermostat's not working. So as soon as I hung up the phone with him, I called one of my electricians, and I got him to come out, check that water tank. Hot water tank's fine. I said, check every thermostat in my house now. Check everything. So I said, I got to make other people aware of what's going on because my electrician said sometimes they're using these smart readers. And I just don't understand. And like every time someone comes up our driveway, I get a ding on my phone through the security camera. I don't see anybody coming up here reading any meters, so it must be read from a distance. And this was the first time I was aware of in-house power even doing these type of readings from a distance. But what blows my mind is that I took the actual time and spent the actual money on make sure this house is properly insulated. And like I said to the guy on the phone, I said, our baseboard heaters never cut in the wintertime. I said, we burn wood, and we got heat pumps in our home. So, but he couldn't really give me any explanation whatsoever why this power bill went up, like in the last 6 months. And it's not like a little bit. Like in 2024, in the month of July, it was 915. 2025, in July, 1,815 kilowatts. So I'm just wanting to ask the question: is there any other people calling in, having concerns or complaints, or if you know any reason for this to even be happening? And like for us, it's about the money a bit, but like why should we have to pay for something that we're not using? Because we weren't home in July and August.
I hear this all the time, Shannon, and generally speaking, to a man, to a woman, they can't get an explanation. And if and when they're given some sort of half-hearted explanation, it really doesn't make any sense. Like even back in February, when the complaints were coming fast and furious about the power bills, year-over-year comparisons and whatnot, that's one thing. Because in the winter, people can get away with saying, well, it's colder temperatures and it's been windy, and then it's hard to fight back because it was cold and windy. But over the course of the summer, and the email that you received with very little to no explanation, it's extremely frustrating, whether it be about the money, the principal, or whatever the case may be. But I hear this all the time.
Mm-hmm. So I got Danny Doomer's number. I do believe he's still on the Public Utilities Board. Am I correct in saying that?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, okay. He used to be on it before then.
Yes, that's quite a long time ago. Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you have like another type of contact that I can reach out to? Just say not a person who's on the phone, just standby, for someone who can answer these questions for me. Because, like I said, as soon as they said the thermostat and hot water tank, I knew that he didn't know what he was talking about, because I'm pretty familiar. Because if your thermostat was on full time, your hot water tank will boil over and give out. That's just what happens. So I just went ahead and called my electrician. I said, come down and check these couple things. I got them check every thermostat in my house. I got them check the load on the panel, and everything seemed fine. So I'm not burning any more power. And then he asked also if anybody was coming up plugging an extension cord into my house while I was gone. I said no. And if somebody did come and plug an extension cord for a skill saw or for a chop saw, your power bill is not going to double. Like, it just don't make any sense at all. And like I said, this is the first time I've ever called. We do not complain. We know power bills is going up, but it shouldn't go up 100%.
Yeah, there's only,
from one. Yeah,
I get it. You can, first steps, and you're going to be told this by the PUB, is you have to deal directly with either Newfoundland Labrador Hydro or Newfoundland Power, and they've got a complaints division. They just call it customer relations. If you do not get a resolution, you can indeed file a formal complaint with the Board of Commissioners at the PUB. You can also deal with the Consumer Advocate as well. So those are the only two entities outside of the utilities.
Yeah, because like I was saying to the wife, I said, sometimes the power goes here, a tree may blow on the line, and we got backup power. I said, we wouldn't burn $700 a month in gas if we had to power our house with gasoline.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because we're gone to work in the daytime, so if we got to flick the power on for 3 or 4 hours in the nighttime to cook supper and get a shower and go to bed, well, so be it. But I know we wouldn't burn $700 a month in gas for to power our house, and it's so well done for insulating. And like I said, I'm a carpenter by trade, and I took the extra steps and precautions to make sure this was properly insulated. Heat pumps, baseboard heaters don't cut in, and we got a wood-burning fireplace that's really energy efficient. So I'm just mind-boggled about the 100% increase in our power bill. And I just want to let listeners know just to pay attention to your power bill. If you're on equal payments and if you're not paying attention to it, like, they just do whatever they want for the most part. That's what it seems like, because we printed off the last 12 bills, the last 12 monthly bills, and every single one has been gone up substantially.
If I was you, I'd do the follow-up. After, so at Newfoundland Hydro, I think it's called Customer Relations, and at Newfoundland Power, it is Customer Relations, and at Newfoundland Hydro, it's Customer Services. But if you're not getting any satisfaction there, then the only two other avenues available are the Consumer Advocate, which is Dennis Brown, and or the Board of Commissioners at the PUB.
Yeah, because I've asked for someone to come and look at the meter, just to make sure the meter was functioning properly, because it was shock. And like I said, it is what it is. If we use the power, we pay for it. But the full month of July, my wife and myself and my son, we were in St. John's. and 3 weeks in August, and it still went up a lot.
Understood.
In July. Okay, sir, you go on back to your callers. You have a great day.
You too. Let me know if this plays out at all at the PUB, because I've sent some people down that road in the past, and they've run up against nothing. So, pardon me, they've run up against nothing but a brick wall, I should say. So let me know how you make out.
I'm the type of guy that I won't stop until I get the answer, because I just believes that this is wrong, and I just believe in fairness. So if I'm the person who needs to make a few extra calls and knock on a few extra doors and say, man, what's up with this? I will.
Well, let me know how it works out, if you don't mind.
I will. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
have a great
Shannon.
morning.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Look, I mean, when you have a question about your bill and we're dealing with a utility, there's got to be better answers offered than, what about your hot water boiler? You know, what about it? If you have concerns with it and you want to justify the bill, maybe come out and take a look at the meter, or take a look at what's happening inside his house, the measures he's taken to be energy efficient, and then answer the question. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the role of the pharmacists here in the province. Nancy Reid is with the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities, wants to look back at the debate that was, and Chris wants to talk about the MOU, and then whatever you want to talk about right after this.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the president of the Pharmacist Association of Newfoundland and Labrador. That's Dr. Ashley Wagner. Good morning, doctor. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How's it going?
Great today. You?
It's definitely a busy one, so I really appreciate you giving me some time to just talk about some issues of importance to pharmacy and to our association leading into Election Day today. So thank you for that.
Happy to do it.
So in mid-September, a panel sent some correspondence to our 3 political parties looking for responses to many of these important issues. And as of last Tuesday, we had received responses from all the parties. We shared them with our members to help inform their voting decision today. But I just wanted to kind of touch on a couple of those important issues and make sure the public is aware so they can also consider them going into Election Day today. So the first is on universal coverage for pharmacy services. So as most people are probably aware, a couple of years ago, we, got universal coverage for extensions and also for 8 common ailments that pharmacists can assess and prescribe for. And that was great. I think that as pharmacists, we've really shown our worth and how we're such a huge asset in the healthcare system. As of late, I think we're at about 30,000 residents in this province have been assessed and potentially prescribed for a UTI by a pharmacist. So that's 30,000 people, we're keeping out of doctors' offices, out of waiting rooms. And I certainly think we've kind of shown what we can do to help with the healthcare system. But it is only 8 common ailments we're currently receiving coverage for. So pharmacists actually at this time can assess and prescribe for 33 common ailments. So 25 of those are not covered under this universal coverage. So I think it's something that government definitely needs to start focusing on so that our public can avail of their pharmacists more for these services. And again, hopefully keep them out of doctor's offices and waiting rooms and having to avail of services that they're potentially having to pay for in the communities as well.
Yeah, and some of that stems from the fact that a lot of people listening to the show this morning consider pharmacists someone in a white coat dispensing prescriptions as opposed to the full scope of practice that should be entertained. Can you give us a couple of examples of that list of 25 that should indeed be covered?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of them off the top of my head. One of the things that we really actually pushed for the last time we got 8 was prescribing for dysmenorrhea. Women's health issues are something that are often not always a priority in healthcare. So that was one that we really did push for, was prescribing for dysmenorrhea. We did get prescribing for shingles and UTIs, which were major ones. But there is a lot of things that's happening in other provinces that we are pushing for, and that's prescribing and assessing for strep throat as an example, which is one that, you do see people seeking at walk-in clinics often for.
Absolutely, and time is of the essence. If you've ever had strep throat, you want to be able to get that diagnosed and a prescription tout de suite.
100% there, and we have put forward to government our proposals for different common ailments that we think are the priority at this point. But there really hasn't been any movement, and it has been over 2 years. So, like I said, I really think we've shown that we kind of took that 8 and we really ran with it. And I really think at this point we really need to be expanding that so we can help more residents in this province.
Where does the Pharmacists Association come down on things like recruitment? Because we talk about that throughout the entirety of healthcare professionals, incentives for. And, if you're working in the quote-unquote private sector, it's one thing. But if you're working in the public sector, i.e. the hospitals, what does recruitment look like?
Yeah, I'm really happy you brought that up because that's another point that we really hammered home when we reached out to the political parties. We are actually very concerned about the number of vacancies currently both in community and hospital, but particularly in our hospital pharmacies. We have met with government on different occasions, and we have really put forward some specific measures that we think need to be taken in order to make sure we're not only retaining the staff we have, but also helping bring people in because there is a shortage. And really, if anything, we should be expanding the number of pharmacists in our hospital. Hospital pharmacists have such a unique skill set. They are medication experts. We should be seeing them on all floors in the hospital, on all teams. A lot of people go into the hospital and they never see a pharmacist. They're all working behind the scenes, but in an ideal situation, they would be there. You would be seeing them. They do have so much to offer in those settings.
Is there any different level of training or education for a pharmacist working in a hospital setting?
There isn't. Some do have residency training, but often, so as part of our, licensure, we have to do continuing education units each year. So they often do that. And then there's, of course, on-the-job training. So I worked in a hospital for a brief period of time. And I worked with pharmacists who worked in the ICU, and the amount of knowledge that they had learned both individually on the job, it was amazing, honestly. They have so much knowledge, and they're such an asset to healthcare teams. And I think anyone who works in the hospital with these pharmacists would say that as well.
This might be a strange question, but give us an example of something a pharmacist can currently do inside their scope of practice that people might not know about. Because I send people over, for instance, to Munn School of Pharmacy and the Medication Therapy Services Clinic, where they look at the entirety of your prescriptions and what might be redundant, what might be dangerous, and all those types of things. So give us an example of something that you can do that people might not know about.
Well, 100%. So, medication review that you brought up, I hope most of the public is aware that we can do that. And often we do it even sometimes when people aren't realizing. We're kind of constantly looking and being like, is this appropriate? Is it not? And working with patients and physicians or prescribers. But right now, I'm not sure how many people are aware of this, but earlier this year, we actually got the approval to assess and prescribe more of the publicly funded vaccines. So things like MMR, Shingrix, most people did know that one was kind of in the news a lot, but MMR, Tdap, a lot of those vaccines that people we're having to go through public health for or their physician, we actually can assess and prescribe for them at our level now. And it's no cost to the patient.
I appreciate your time this morning, Doctor. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, again, with the recruitment and retention, I would just like to hammer home that I do think it's a really important thing that we should be pressuring our government to look at because like I said, I'm quite concerned about the shortages we have. Our hospital pharmacists really do not have a fair contract at this time, which is really making it difficult for recruitment and retention. And I think this is something that the government needs to closely look at. And we've been saying this for a number of years now. So that's something I really hope to see coming out of this election is better contracts being negotiated for our pharmacists and also the other allied health professionals.
Two quick ones. Can you give us a number regarding the shortage inside the hospitals of pharmacists, just for context?
So unfortunately, I do not have a number. We're actually, a number of years ago, we did complete a vacancy survey. But at that time, we were not given access to the numbers in hospital. We only really had definitive community numbers. We are circulating that survey again, hoping to get some accurate numbers again to go to government and continue to advocate. So we are hoping, and we have encouraged that, hopefully we will get those numbers so that we can better advocate for our hospital pharmacists.
Last one. Does the Pharmacists Association have a position on the province, the fact the province has not signed on to National Pharmacare at this point?
We do not. Unfortunately, there really isn't enough information that has been provided to us about the specifics of National Pharmacare. We have always encouraged government to include us in any conversation they have with the federal government regarding National Pharmacare. So, we haven't been in any talks. I don't know where the government is at it, but they have assured us that they will involve us in those decisions, because I think the most important thing is if you're signing on for a National Pharmacare, you need the pharmacists to be involved.
No question. It's good to have you on this program this morning. Nice to meet you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dr. Ashley Wagmar, a pharmacist and, of course, the president at Panel. Let's take a break. When we get back, the executive director of the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities is Nancy Reid. She's in the queue, then you. Don't go away. Oh, welcome back. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to the executive director at CAD&L. That's Nancy Reid. And good morning, Nancy. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. Great to be here today. Thanks so much for getting me on.
My pleasure.
Patty, I'd like to start the conversation not around the election piece per se, but I want to give you an update on something we did a couple of weeks ago. On September 29th at the Coalition, we held a disability forum. I don't have an official title for it, so I'm calling it that. And it was held in person at the Holiday Inn on Portugal Cove Road. We also were joined by a number of individuals in the province, throughout the province, joined through Zoom in that live event. And we had at least 30 individuals come to the in-person session, and including in that number were a number of new faces, which is always a great thing to see, but really nice that we can reach out and include people who don't usually come to those spaces. So we realized that at that meeting. The disability forum that we held was intended to be a place where individuals identifying with disability could come together to talk about their concerns and talk about their concerns at this election moment. It was immediately before the municipal election as well as the provincial election, of course. And we even realized a couple of individuals from both elections came. So there were a couple of individuals who were offering themselves in the provincial election, and a couple of folks who were offering themselves for the municipal spaces in the city of St. John's. So again, that was really appreciated. The individuals came together and talked about a number of significant issues, and I think that for those, running for elected office who were present, it was really important for them and was certainly educational, and each of them spoke at the end and said that. We did run into a hiccup, I'm going to call it, an unfortunate moment with that particular forum, and it's something that I want to address publicly. We, at the beginning of the forum, actually literally 10 minutes before the meeting was to start, I was actually at the head table and many of the guests were already in place in the room. We got notification from the American Sign Language interpreters who were going to be covering that event that they were not able to be there with us. Now, I will say very openly that the individuals who were to do that event, the ASL interpreters, were not local folks. We tried to get folks from the local community. There simply are not enough interpreters, ASL interpreters, in this province to meet the needs of the community and the group that need them. And so even though we tried, for several days to get folks, there was nobody locally available. So what we often have to do, and did in this case, was go to virtual interpreters through, different parts of the country. We were able to secure 2 interpreters for that evening. Unfortunately, they canceled at the very last minute. And so I had a room full of individuals, some folks needing ASL interpretation, and we weren't able to provide it in that moment. What we did was a conversation with an individual who uses ASL in the room on that day. We decided on the spot that we would, while we were recording the event anyway, that we would take that recording and have ASL, have an interpreter videoed and insert it into the overall video. I'm in the process right now of circulating that particular video, which I actually got back from the interpreters this morning, to the general public, and specifically, of course, to anybody who was disenfranchised by the meeting that we had, that were not able to participate. It will now be circulated starting tomorrow to the broader community, and we will give everybody a chance to see what was said and what was done at that meeting. We're following that next week when we can get the ASL interpreters again to a Zoom meeting that will reach out to the broad community and targeting individuals who use ASL to be able to contribute, just as people would have done on the 29th of September. At that time, after that, all of that information will be compiled and again will be put forward publicly so that there's a documentation of the issues that were brought forward. It's going to be circulated to government. It'll be on Facebook. It'll be to whomever wants it. But we want to follow through with that.
I don't think people realize how difficult it is to secure an interpreter, ASL interpreter. I mean, I have business owners coming to me saying, do I know where to go? Because they've gone through the Association for the Deaf and maybe have gone through your office, whatever the case may be, and coming up absolutely short, cannot secure one.
Yeah, it really is a challenge, and it's simply because we do not have enough interpreters to cover the need that's in this province to always be there, to always have somebody. If you're a person who uses ASL, to speak, if you're going to a doctor's appointment, if you're going to a bank, if you're going to a public meeting, you need to be able to contribute and to receive the information. That's only available if you have an interpreter there. And in this particular event, as I said, we went to the virtual option, which, we often have to do. I go to meetings throughout the country just about every day, and there are usually virtual interpreters today available in those spaces. This is the first time in my 10-plus years of planning these events that we've had somebody or a company drop the call at the last minute. But it does happen occasionally, and it's really unfortunate, obviously. But, at that moment, there was nothing else that we could figure out what to do except to try to make it equitably available to everybody at the end of the day. So I hope that's what we're doing. But one other thing that we realized from that particular meeting, and it was a request made by an individual through the Zoom call, is that we represent a community, some 31% of the population, who want to be able to come together more frequently in a similar way. So at the Coalition, we committed to creating an event, a Zoom event. Right now we're going to start it every other month, so we'll do it, every second month. That will be available to people with disabilities who would like to meet together, discuss concerns, talk about opportunities, and just share, build community. So we're going to be starting that, and when we get more information about that happening, after we take care of all of the immediate issues, I'm going to bring that to open line, and it'll certainly be in our social media spaces as well, to really enable the community to come together in that way. We really see that need, and people identify that they're ready and want to do that. So we want to be able to help that happen.
And hopefully it does. Anything else, Nancy, before I go to the news?
Please, yes. I want to speak just to the leaders' debate from last week. And I want to say, and I've said it in other spaces, disability was dismissed in that particular event. We represent 31% of the population, persons with disabilities do, and in that 90 minutes, there was nothing said about disability. The word disability was used at a moment without any clarification. It was just said, and for disabilities, and that was it. I will say that in the official platforms from each of the parties, there was definite recognition of the need for the disability advocate and a commitment by each party to do that, even though the details are different in each platform. But that's not new information, Really, that's information that we were already guaranteed in the last sitting of the House when all members present unanimously said that they support the creation of the disability advocate. We are 31% plus of the population, and disabilities and the issues for our population was absolutely dismissed in that space. I'll say that, at the Coalition, we've often worked with MHAs of every color and stripe, and even the independents over recent months and years, who have certainly had great conversations with us, and we've realized some moments But with these platforms, with this overarching party representation, we were totally dismissed in that space. I think it's really unfortunate. It didn't give me any confidence in the ability for any of these parties from a party place to really understand the needs of that demographic. And it's a huge demographic. I think there's a real miss that was that we saw in that debate, honestly. And there were so many places where disability thoughts and issues could have come up, whether we're talking about housing or education or healthcare. There were so many issues that were just absolute misses. And I really hope that the leaders and whoever is successful after today understands that we are 31% of the population. We're not going anywhere, and these issues must get addressed better.
Understood, Nancy. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Nancy Reid, the Executive Director at the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities. Let's take a break for the news. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Come back to the show. Let's go. Line number 4. Chris, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty, how are you today?
Not too bad, you?
Good. Happy Thanksgiving.
The same to you.
Thank you. So I wanted to talk about Quebec power markets, pretty regular. Also, of course, everyone should go out and vote. And I think something that everyone has missed, and I'm just finding it out this morning, is that Quebec this year, for the first time in many, many decades, is an energy importer. And, this is, I think, quite important to us with our talks around the MOU and replacement costs and many other things. But, normally Quebec would be selling huge amounts of power to the states, but just last month they ticked over into being net negative. And, feels like that might matter to us.
How so? And some of that might be, I'm not going to say misleading on purpose or anything, but some of that also comes from sources that are outside Quebec's provincial boundaries, but they also have equity stake in.
Yeah, so they're tracking the flow of power is very complicated. They're, especially between Ontario and Quebec, they do have shared resources, and Quebec does have resources that are stateside. So there is, of course, devil in the details. But normally Quebec would be, say, let's call it, 3.5 terawatt hours of export by this point of the year. And that has totally flipped. And so far this year, they've imported 3.187 terawatt hours.
And isn't some of this based on a couple of things? Isn't it some of the drought conditions and levels of the reservoirs and what have you, and as a temporary net importer versus a trend to becoming a permanent importer?
Well, I mean, most of it does come down to water, but they have had demand growth as well.
Yep.
So Quebec has a very electrified economy. They're well ahead of AI and software than a lot of people. So, and of course, aluminum and the sort of metal processing. So their demand has kept going up, and they have had several failed wind projects. They were supposed to have about, I think, 2 gigawatts of wind built over the last 5 years. That hasn't happened. So the power that they were planning to put on the grid hasn't showed up. And then, of course, the big one, like you said, is the drought. Everything is dry everywhere. And, that will correct itself eventually, one assumes, if we ever get back to regular winters. But until it does, they are likely to be in this very precarious position of being an importer of power rather than an exporter.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned AI. For the life of me, still cannot understand why people don't latch onto the fact that AI is going to soak up so much power generation. It is mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's pretty bonkers, and we functionally don't have that part of the economy here. And we may someday if we had the power to attract them. But at the moment, we of course don't. it's not even really demand. AI is kind of quite mobile like that. If we had cables in the right places, then that would be, cables and energy would make us a great place to sell a bunch of AI. But we're definitely not there. And Quebec had been there, but if the next few years are anything like the last few years, their supply of power and in turn prices are going to be absolutely skyrocketing.
No doubt about it. I'm going to try to sneak a few calls in. Anything else you want to talk about regarding the MOU and or Hydro-Quebec, import, export, whatever the case may be?
Really appreciate your call with Mr. Wilson. That was one of the most important conversations our province has had on it. So I would encourage anyone to listen to that, and I appreciate your time and Mr. Wilson's on it. And of course, whoever you vote for, please tell them to look at power markets and not just try and sate a sense of shame over Quebec, because we would pay hundreds of billions of dollars for it.
Yeah, it's just so tangly, it's not even funny. I appreciate the time, Chris. Thanks for doing it.
You too, Patty. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye. Let's keep going. Let's go to line number 5. Marcel, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Patty. Been a while since I spoke to you.
Welcome back.
Patty, I went to vote this morning and went to the former, trying to find out where the polling stations were. And as you're quite aware, I mean, in a democracy, the right to vote is crucial for our survival, having a decent democracy. But I went to 3 places before. I couldn't find. I went online. I Googled different places, and myself and my manager was 15, 20 minutes. We still couldn't find it. The only reason I found the right place to vote, I'm on Kingsbridge Road, was I phoned the parties, and they told me where to vote. So I'm sure I'm not the only one. I did meet one gentleman I was walking, because normally we were voting across the street at the Canon Anglican Church, and in the recent years it was over on Barrington, I think the Choice for Youth or something there. I can't remember the name exactly. I went to both of these places, assuming that it would be similar spots, but it wasn't. So I finally got to vote, and then I spoke to the people that's running the elections up there, and they said I was the 4th person that came in, not knowing where to vote. So it's good to have elections, which is very important, but the right to vote doesn't count if you can't get the right information to vote. So some people will get frustrated, and I don't know why that the government or the people or the elections, elections doesn't put out the radio announcement or some way of informing people where the exact to vote. And I also encountered someone at the voting poll who was went to the wrong place because they were told by a guy who was knocking doors for a certain party, and they were told to vote a certain place, and that didn't work out, and they finally found the right place. So it's disheartening, and when we're trying to get the votes up, we already got a serious situation where people don't vote, which is unfortunate. They become very apathetic to voting, and that's a sad state of our democracy. I mean, just recently, the city of St. John's, I think they had 30% or something, or less than 30% voting for the mayor. And in federal elections, we're down, and definitely in provincial elections. So I think that making sure that everybody knows exactly where to vote, and that being announced 3 or 4 days prior to voting would go a long ways to getting more people to vote, for the people that really want to vote.
Yeah, the fact we didn't get voter cards is frustrating. So you can go to Elections NL's website, put in your address. There's a Where to Vote tab. You can do it that way. You can also call the office, and I'm sure that phone line is extremely busy today. In addition to that, you can pick a candidate in your voting district, call their office, their headquarters, and they'll be able to help you find the proper polling station as well. And hopefully you get honest brokers on the other end of the phone who give you the accurate information. But first things first, try Elections NL. You just click
Sorry to interrupt you, Patty. That's exactly what I did do. All the things you're talking about, I did. In the election, I put in, even the lady at the polling booth on her phone put in elections and put the word Kingsbridge in and put my address in, and did not come up and tell us where the voting station was. That's my point. They're not giving us the right information, or there's very little information. The only reason that I found out, I called the parties. I not only called one, I called the 3 parties to get exactly which place was exactly to vote. And I finally got the correct answer, of course. But not everybody's going to take an hour or so at their time on election day morning to go and do what I did. They're going to say, to hell with it, I'm not voting. And that's a sad state of where we are right now. And I think it's very important that people go and find out today. And I think that VOCM would do a really good service if they would announce, there's not that many districts, they find out, just announce on the radio where the voting polling stations are. Because most people don't know. I'm sure of that. If I had that same problem, 4 other people have that same problem, that makes 5 of us, and it's only early in the morning. So I'm sure there's lots of other people out there, Patty, that has that same problem.
Unfortunately so. I appreciate the time, Marcel. Thank you.
Yeah, one thing, if I may say, I'd like to make a statement on the hydro deal between Quebec and Newfoundland. I would like to state this. First of all, the Churchill Falls project tells us something. There's a really bad deal. The Muskrat Falls started out as you and I had a discussion. I mean, when it went to 6.2, I suggested that we stop it. If you remember the conversation, that we pause and rethink that and see what we can do to keep the cost down. That went ahead. We're now got an extremely large bill to pay for, and Newfoundland and Labrador has the second highest debt in Canada. I think BC beats us, which is unbelievable. So I think that should go to a plebiscite. We should let the people speak. We could not do any. We had 2 mistakes. If the people make a mistake, that'd be third. But I got to believe if the people was given the right to vote on this deal with Quebec, I believe they would not go ahead with it as it stands today.
Appreciate the time, Marcel. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, final break of the morning. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 6. Good morning, Frank Butt. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thanks for taking my call.
Happy to have you on. So are you now officially out as the Mayor of Carbonear?
No, I got one more day left
Okay.
after today. Yeah, I'm going to say tomorrow now is the swearing in of the new council, and I just want to congratulate all the people who put their names in for the hat for the positions on council, and congratulations to those who were successful, and for those who weren't, just keep trying again. Patty, I just wanted to thank the residents for having the faith in me for the past 12 years to be elected to council, and in the last 8 years as mayor, it certainly is a privilege, and it's certainly not all fun and games, but it all depends what you put into it, and I would encourage anyone who would like to run for any position like that, certainly step up to the plate and do it. It's certainly it's good to have members on the council that work together, and overall we certainly did. A lot of projects were completed, a lot of projects were started and are ongoing, and I'm certainly sure that the incoming council will certainly make sure that those projects are completed. But I wanted to make sure that I thank the residents, for electing me, and I also want to thank my family, because without your family behind you, it certainly makes it a bit more difficult to run for any position where it takes up so much of your time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but, municipal politics and municipal responsibility is a lot of our day-to-day needs. And running for council takes a little bit of guts, because on the other end, there could be a lot of thankless days. I'm not going to characterize your time in office for you. You can do that for yourself.
That's right. Yes, I understand what you're saying there, Patty. You're certainly not going to please everyone, but I mean, you do what you can, and I'm pleased with what we did over the past 12 years, and it certainly takes funding from both provincial and federal governments to make projects work. During the wildfires that happened there this summer, we had an influx of about 25% more residents into our town. But because over the years we increased our, and worked on our infrastructure, for water and sewer, we were certainly able to handle that influx of people easily, and there was no issues with our, underground infrastructure. But this is the first year that we have received zero funding for capital works projects, and that's concerning for me, because next year there won't be any work done, or this year won't be any work done for capital work. So we're going to be a year behind, but I'm sure that the new council certainly will work that out. But over 12 years and over 25 years of talking to administration, they have never received anything. It never received a zero amount, but every year was always like $3.5, $4 million a year. So it makes a difference in not receiving these fundings.
Were there any specific projects that went unfunded by the provincial government or their cost-sharing portion?
Yes, Paddy, I don't have them in front of me now, but every year we submit about 4 or 5, right? We have a list of about 15, but we don't submit all those because we know, realistically we're not going to get them. But and I just I can't think of the one now the ones that didn't get done there. Our downtown revitalization, we're into the 3rd phase of that there now. There are some little hiccups on that there, so I was talking to the incoming mayor, and they said that he'll certainly make sure that project gets completed, and that's a big one for our town because it's not only just for our residents, but people actually drive in as far away as Clarenville to come in to visit our downtown because they certainly like it, and it's good for business, not just in the downtown, but in the whole of Carbonear. Fair enough. I appreciate the time, Frank, and congratulations on a good run. No problem. And Paddy, listen, with the MOU, people have been beating that to death, so I'm not going to say much on it. Just that when you get out to vote today, if you haven't already voted, just understand what your position of the candidate is on that and then vote wisely. Appreciate this, Frank. Thank you. Thank you, Paddy. You're welcome. Bye-bye. Frank Bott, the outgoing mayor of the town of Carbonear. So apparently people are really struggling to find a polling station. Talk about the unfortunate addition to what might indeed be a pretty low voter turnout. The concept of fatigue, look, I get it. We're just about to put the 3rd election this year in our rearview mirror. So we all know the federal election turnout wasn't great. Municipal elections, the turnout was woeful. I mean, absolutely woeful here in the city of St. John's and many municipalities right across the province. Hopefully that isn't the case with some of the confusion or the concerns people are sharing with me, which is a lot this morning about finding your polling station. Basically, the only advice I have is Elections NL's website. It worked for me, no problem at all. I just simply typed in my civic address and up popped the polling station. If you don't have any luck there, you can indeed phone. People tell me that it's been busy all morning long. I'm not surprised. Last option might indeed just simply be to call one of the candidates' headquarters and make them go to work for you. Help them, let them help you try to find the polling station if you're so inclined and if you're going to get out to vote. One quick reminder, coverage throughout the day, and at 8 p.m. this evening we will indeed have live election result coverage right here on VOCM and Big Land FMs. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM Open Line. On behalf of the producer David Williams, I'm your host Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.